Hi everybody, from a lovely sunny April day. I've been observing events unfolding in the world around me with increasing disbelief. I am truly mystified as to why some humans are behaving the way they do. It seems like the world has flipped on its axis. What was up is now down, what was good is now bad, and the fundamental principles that we embraced for peaceful coexistence seem to have been discredited or even cancelled. The world seems to be a very topsy-turvy place. And that reminded me of one of my many mishaps in my career in the Royal Air Force. And the one I'm particularly keen to share is when I was on a freefall parachute training course in Germany. On one side of the parachute training school was the Sendelager live firing area, on another rugby pitches, and behind were some lakes, which really focused the mind as to the necessity of landing in the drop zone. So one day, I think I was on my fourth jump. I was on 3-second freefall and parachute packed, ready to get on board the plane, but it was currently airborne, dropping out some unfortunates ahead of me. And we were all looking up into the skies to see the progress of our mates. And there was one guy who seemed to come out of the aeroplane and go immediately unstable. There was a bit of a gasp from the assembled throng on the ground. He did his drills perfectly. He immediately deployed his parachute, but then was rather unfortunately hanging upside down in his harness, heading for Earth with a partially inflated canopy because his lines were twisted. Again, good man. He then followed his training to the letter and he performed some amazing acrobatic manoeuvres in midair to right himself in his harness and to kick out some of the tangled lines. So he actually started to descend to Earth in a more survivable rate. As he landed, there was a ripple of applause from the assembled throng, and then a gasp as an ambulance pitched up, because in the process of his acrobatic manoeuvring in midair, he had dislocated his shoulder. And the only thing I could think of at that time was, there is no way I'm ever going to dislocate my shoulder if I come out unstable. Way too painful. So we duly got airborne for our jump, and unfortunately the cloud had come over, and we circled for 20 minutes and then landed with the aircraft, which is the worst thing ever. We had to wait another hour, and then we got airborne again, and we circled another 20 minutes waiting for a break in the cloud, by which time my nerves were shredded and I had dissolved. Suddenly the cloud opened and the parachute jump instructor said, "Right, everybody out." And we all shuffled across to the door of the aircraft. And I got to my turn and I dangled my legs over the side, looked at the PJI in the eye, and he said, "Go." And I said, "I beg your pardon." At that moment, he knew that I knew that he knew that I knew that I was not going to leave that aircraft. So he said, in a very sympathetic and compassionate way, "You heard," and he pushed me out. So here I am, falling through the air, tumbling, and rapidly gaining velocity, I might add. And what was the first thought that came to Clary's mind? I am not going to dislocate my shoulder. So I decided in the moment that I would become stable before I deployed my parachute. We'd been told about how to do that in theory, but there was no need to practice it because it was not a drill. It was frowned upon. It was the worst thing you could do. But I just ignored all of that because I always know better. So for those of you who've done freefall parachuting, you'll understand this. And for those that you haven't, there is an extraordinary amount of air resistance as you're hurtling to Earth. And you're trying to push your arms and legs out in a spread eagle position. And it actually takes some seconds and effort to do that. Finally, I did, righted myself rather smugly. And then my emergency parachute, my reserve parachute, self-deployed, which alarmed me slightly because that meant that I was passing 1,000 feet at 120 miles an hour heading for the ground without a canopy. And I thought, ooh. So I then reached for my handle and deployed my main parachute because I thought in this instance, 2 parachutes were better than none. And as my descent was arrested to a more survivable rate of descent, I looked around me and realised I had drifted off the DZ and I was going to land in the middle of the rugby pitch. There was a game going on, so I hollered to attract the boys' attention. They stopped the game, moved to the side of the pitch while I landed. But I thought, well, seeing as I've got an audience of really hunky guys, I'm going to make a bit of a good landing. So I flared the parachutes and landed standing up. Another complete no-no. Always meant to do a parachute roll on landing. I didn't get my ripple of applause. The guys were really hacked off with me. So I just sort of bundled up my 2 canopies and shuffled off, where I was met by a wave of furious rage and anger from the commanding officer of the parachute training school. And I got the best bollocking of my entire career from that man. I thought his anger was stemming from fear. He was frightened that I'd nearly killed myself. But no, his anger was actually pure anger, because I had been very close to blotting his otherwise virginal copybook of no deaths on my watch. I was hoping that my punishment would be to be sent home in disgrace and I would never have to jump out of an aeroplane ever again. But my punishment was to finish the course and to demonstrate that I could follow orders and exercise appropriate self-discipline. And I did, and I finished the course. I did 17 jumps in all. And on my last jump, which was a 12-second free fall, I was having such a lovely time. The weather was great, visibility was fabulous, and I was just floating around and realised I was now at 14 seconds free falling, and I should have deployed my parachute at 12. So it just goes to show I wasn't cut out for it. And there were 2 lovely lessons I learned from that whole experience. In the RAF, if ever there's an accident, and hopefully not a fatal one, there's always an inquiry as to examine which part of the chain of events you could have broken to achieve a different outcome. And I traced my chain of events back to sitting on the door of the aircraft when the PJI said, go. If I'd have just gone with commitment, conviction, followed the rules, followed my training, none of this would have happened. So my first lesson was, he who hesitates is lost. My second lesson was, fortune favours the bold. I learned a lot about myself and I gained a lot of courage points in my courage bank by doing that course, and I'm pretty proud that I survived it. So with those 2 things in mind, I've decided to stop hesitating, to get off the proverbial fence and to make a stand for what I believe in. I don't like the way society is going. I don't like the way human relations are being discredited in the way that I held them as dear and valuable. So today I am birthing my mission, and I'm making a stand for what I believe in, which is to bring balance back to society and human relations. And how will I do that? By cherishing and cultivating unifying principles of tolerance, kindness, cooperation, and collaboration. There, I have stuck my head above the parapet. And how am I going to do that? Well, I've got a lot of ideas, always have a lot of ideas, me, but some of them are actually going to come to fruition, and I will share those with you on another video. But for now, I wish that you find your own place of inner balance in this spiraling, chaotic life of ours, and that you enjoy harmonious relationships with everybody with whom you come into contact. And I look forward to sharing my ideas with you sooner rather than later. Wishing you a lovely day. Take care. Blessed be.